All right, 1, 2, 3, here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back. 1, 2, 3. Hey everybody, welcome back to Chalkboard History. We are going to do something that we have never done before.
Hate mail.
Hate mail. Actually, it's going to be just sort of, we're going to have a little fun with some things that we've heard through the years.
I can't believe you didn't include my comment in this video. Why haven't you included my comment in this video?
So I'm going to blame.
Answer me.
I'm going to blame my friend, longtime friend Gary Edelman, who put together a hilarious video on April Fools where he was depicting some people that he's encountered through the years. And you know, I think the first time. So before we get into some hate mail, which is really fun, is I was thinking about. This is so good. Is that good? You like that?
It's coming across pretty well.
So
I would like to imagine that's what you drive around all day listening to.
Never. Never. But I will say that years ago I was at work and someone was complaining. It was actually there'd been a reenactment, and someone was complaining about how the soldiers didn't have the right buttons on their uniforms. And I remember thinking, well, most of the soldiers were 20 years too old and 30 pounds overweight.
That's the part you got hung up on?
That's the part you were hung up on, was they didn't have the right buttons. And then it was a complaint. And somebody would complain about the hat. And it was just this sort of endless complaining. It was my first exposure to this world, this like subculture of people. And it just got me to thinking about some of the crazy stuff that we've heard through the years. But I have to say, when I first brought this up, I got to bring Bill Clark into this.
Poor Bill.
Poor Bill. Poor Bill was very worried that we were going to do a video and make fun of our guests, which we wouldn't, because our guests have never really been.
It's never been the guests.
Like what I just mentioned was a guest, but that's kind of funny. But what I told Bill we were going to talk about was the stuff that's been hurled at us, which really isn't from anybody who visits. It's usually online stuff.
Yeah.
You know, back in the old days, you actually had to write a letter, and I'm convinced that some people would never send the letter because you actually had to take the effort to actually write it. Then you have to fold it, and you'd have to put it in an envelope, and then you have to write an address, and you have to put a stamp on it. Yeah. Then you'd have to haul yourself off to the post office. So it was really a process. Today, all one needs is a cup of coffee and a couple of fingers, and you can just start hurling insults via email. Facebook added to the fun. That became such a wonderful addition in the last...
What does this post have to do with about Carnton?
Right, exactly. What does this have to do with the Battle of Franklin?
Why aren't you talking about the Civil War?
Why aren't you talking about Black Confederates? You know, the war wasn't really about slavery. It was about tariffs. Lincoln was a tyrant. Sherman was a murderer. Grant was an alcoholic. Yes.
There's the laudanum bottle again.
There's the laudanum bottle. And it's just on and on and on and on and on. But I think one of my favorites, it had to be right around the 150th anniversary. And of course, the person sending this, I think, is slightly off his rocker. But he wanted to know why we were not using the... as he put it, the flag of Jesus Christ.
Ah, yes.
Right. So he was
that one.
Right. So he was telling me, he was giving me a lesson on how the Confederate battle flag was the flag of Jesus Christ. Now, I will tell you, I'm reasonably well informed. I thought it was one of the strangest things ever. But the hate mail through the years really has been... I don't know. It's entertaining.
In every direction.
You've gotten a good dose of some of it just in recent days and weeks. So what have you come into this like me in the sense that you would not anticipate this from people who love or like history, right? But it comes all the time. So what's been some of your most amusing things? Oh wait, before I forget, Fuller Story. When we led the effort,
You have your own separate folder. Like there's hate mail, and then there's Fuller Story hate mail.
Right, then there's the Fire Eric Jacobson file, right? Because he's a woke liberal, he's a propagandist, he's a Yankee, I don't think I've ever been called, I've been called a carpetbagger.
Yeah.
Been called a lot of things.
Which is interesting, because of the two of us at the table, I'm the scalawag, you're the carpetbagger.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
But
I like
I think one of the most entertaining that I got throughout the Fuller Story was, well, there were no black troops at Franklin. And I was like, well, first of all, we never said that there were. We were representing black men from Williamson County who served in USCT units. But I also got to thinking about, well, there are Confederate monuments all over the place that have nothing to do with battles.
I don't like the way that the statue looks. Why does the statue look like that?
Exactly.
It's very cartoonish, don't you think?
Yes.
That's a bit of a caricature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is what we get. And it's... So what are some of your most recent favorites?
Most recent favorite, I think, has to be after we put the silhouettes out.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the silhouette of Carrie McGavick? Why don't you have a silhouette of Carrie McGavick?
That one to me...
I think that's probably the best one.
Yeah.
That's the best recent one.
Yeah.
Right?
You do try to retain good humor.
Yeah.
But when you're putting out silhouettes to represent people that have never been represented, and then someone's immediate retort is, well, why don't you have another representation of Carrie McGavick, whose portrait's been in the house?
You mean the giant life-size portrait that hangs above the mantle?
Right. And
is not representative enough.
Right. And Carrie McGavick, who gets talked about every day on every tour.
Her house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Now, what I have learned is that while some people might not poke fun at it, but we just can't help ourselves anymore. This happens all over the place, and it's a really sad statement that you feel so strongly about something that you have to attack and try and demean someone, and that's what you do. You just sit there and you flail away and you hurl insults at people. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Another personal favorite has been, so I did a video a couple of weeks ago with another videographer about the Cannonball Monument.
Oh.
The Patrick Claiborne Memorial Epitaph.
Yeah, which it never was.
Right. And so in the comment section, immediately somebody was like, well, it stood where the Pizza Hut once stood. And that's why we always tongue-in-cheek called it the Patrick Claiborne Memorial Pizza Hut.
And I just want to say, and you're still wrong.
Yeah. Still wrong. That's not where he died. But okay, whatever. That's a good one.
That's something else that I think the online world has, like Kevin Levin, I think, has done a good job in recent years showing how the Black Confederate myth has really grown in power because of the internet. Of the internet, and I see some of those things like that monument, like even Hood being on laudanum was kind of a culture itself, but it exploded. Yeah. In the 90s because of the internet, because one person saying it is one thing, but you can spread that then to 1,000 people. And then because the internet often just caches things, and you can go back to these websites and say, well, I read it somewhere. I read it somewhere. I read it somewhere.
I read it on Facebook.
I read it on Facebook.
What's your source?
Right.
Facebook.
Here's another one that's fun. You've heard me say, I can imagine being popular, like being one of those really famous people, like, could you imagine walking down the street and being some person that everybody recognizes? I would hate that. I would hate that so much.
Is it the invitations to go like, hey, you should come get a beer with us and talk about the Battle of Franklin? I was like,
they're like, yeah, we should go have lunch together. And I'm like, I don't think I want to do that.
I don't know you.
Like, I don't know you well enough, and I appreciate the offer, but I don't want to. I think on more of less the hate mail side.
You already gave like a hat tip to Gary, but I think one of the best parts of that video is like you were just in my area. Why didn't you stop and come see me? Because I don't know if you have like some kind of a torture dungeon. Well, it's more like a booby trap?
I don't know what he said, but it really was funny because it's the same kind of people, and they're well intentioned. It happens. Because of our videos, people will walk in and go, "Oh, you're the guy in the video," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
that's me."
Yeah, that's me. But it's still. The hate mail ones are fun, and you've seen the file.
I've added to the file.
I mean, I can tell you in 2020.
I think this is actually probably the best. Anytime not even like a post about him. He just shows up as an image. Like, these are prominent figures in 1864. War criminal.
He creates hate mail for us.
Tyrant.
So we post about him, and thus people hate us because
domestic terrorist.
Right, we posted about him. He's another one.
Tyrant.
Right. He didn't care about black people. He didn't care about slavery.
Cold-blooded murderer.
Saying that Lincoln didn't care about slavery is like saying Reagan didn't care about communism. It's all he talked about for years and years. Yeah. But in 2020 and into 2021,
yeah, the 2020-21 hate mail file is about that thick.
I think that I must have received at least 250 to 300 emails.
And why was that?
Demanding that I be fired.
Why?
Well, you tell them. You tell them. Why?
Is it the infamous message from the CEO?
That was the start of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I encouraged people to really think about what was at the heart of the Confederacy, not the soldiers. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously the soldiers aren't stupid. They knew the world they lived in, but they weren't the ones that pushed the secession crisis. And that just saying that, and I did it in the aftermath of George Floyd's death, because of course what had happened is there were protests that were unfolding and people were talking about Confederate monuments. I really have continued to be puzzled but also troubled by how people really don't want to talk about some elements of history. However, the good news in all this is that those times have settled down, and there's another generation of people who are now visiting the sites who are not bothered at all by those conversations. And you can go too far, as we saw just in the last couple of days with the Texas Monument, people complaining. They actually said that we held a Ku Klux Klan rally.
Which is a fascinating turn of events.
Right, so I've gone from being a woke liberal to leading a Ku Klux Klan rally all in the span of a couple of years.
Yeah.
And the last time I checked, I'm still pretty much the same person. Which is really, you only can laugh, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so...
I was reading some of the comments. It's like, where were you 2.5 years ago when we put up the monument to the United States Colored Troops? No? Okay. All right.
Sometimes you do have to laugh at the hate mail.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to laugh at the insulting comments, because my dad told me many, many moons ago that if you're taking flack, you must be on target. And he probably heard that from someone else, and I heard it from him. But it's true. And we've been roundly attacked by both sides. I mean,
gotta be doing something right.
Yeah, when we get hammered on from all directions, and I think any organization that's really pushing the interpretive boundaries, but also getting things done. The easiest thing in the world is to not have an opinion. The easiest thing in the world is to not take a position. The easiest thing in the world is to let somebody say, I was going to say, charge uphill, me boys. You know, but the easiest thing to do is not be a leader.
Yeah.
That's a leader.
Took a lot of flack.
That's a leader.
Also took a lot of flack.
And sometimes being a leader is to admit, it didn't work out the way that I thought, and I'm not going to be a baby and cry about this for the rest of my life, and I'm going to try and move on.
Yeah.
Some pay with their lives. You know, I think some would be puzzled by the controversy that surrounds him today. And so here we are 160 years, but, you know, a century and a half later. And I think that it's all worth it. You know, I would be...
Honestly, I kind of laugh most of the time. The hate mail at this point, like, you might get angry for a second, and then you just kind of laugh. You got to laugh it off.
I also have to, I must admit, I also have to laugh at someone sending an email to get me fired, and they're basically semi-literate, and they can't construct a sentence or use capital letters. I'm like, oh, you might want to try a little harder next time, right? Because if you can't, at least John C. Calhoun was highly educated and understood the way to make an argument. And that is also lost among some. And the internet has...
Just kind of slipped to hurling insults and name-calling. Name calling is the quickest way to get banned on any of our Facebook pages.
Oh, yes, and you will get banned.
Yeah.
If you use profanity, if you attack the staff, if you use racial language, boom, gone. Because, everything has a limit, and you can maybe get away with that in some places, but
I think some of my favorite comments are this isn't true history. Tell true history, you suck.
Now you sound literally like Gary's video. Tell true history, you suck. You're pro-South, you're pro-North.
Yeah.
Now I know how that perspective, because it reminded me just the other day that I think there are some people who really don't appreciate history and its nuances. Mm-hmm. They want it to fit into
the perfect politically molded bubble for what they think.
Yep, they want it to fit into
it has to be neatly packaged.
A neat
nice,
box.
Beautiful little box.
Yep.
It's got a bow on it. It makes you feel good when you get finished reading it. Or inversely, there's the other side who wants it to be disgusting and awful and terrible and look at how awful this is. And you don't want to ever touch it and you don't want to ever talk about it, and we should just shove it out of our minds and out of our sight. When in actuality, history is all of that.
And then at the end of the day, when you're not reading some ridiculous email or seeing an online comment, and you walk outside and you see the battlefield, mm-hmm. you see a rip of villa, you see a family who've brought their children, and they're visiting and they're learning, they're enjoying their time, mm-hmm. looking a little bit into the past, maybe their only visit. And some of the detractors, I just don't think have ever gotten that. I don't think they've ever understood the simplicity and the wonder of visiting a historic site and seeing it for what it is, that the place you are visiting is nothing like it was 100 or 150 or 200 years ago. That if you go to Monticello, it isn't about panning on Jefferson. It's about understanding the world that he lived in. And the same is true of coming to a battlefield. For me, going to Gettysburg was as much about the battle as it was about Lincoln going there. And there are pieces of history. What's this? Don't be a hater.
Don't be a hater.
Exactly. What have you heard me? We'll end with this. What have you heard me say? And I've told staff this all the time.
I'm the happiest man in the world.
Boy, that's right. And I am.
Which is kind of funny when he's being very difficult. He's still the happiest man in the world.
What I mean.
That was another tip to Bill Clark.
And what I mean by that is, I am. It's a great job. It's a great place to work. Yeah. It's a great environment to be in. And the knuckleheads out there are always going to be around.
Mm-hmm. And they're missing out. They're missing out on something incredible.
They really are. They're missing out on something. They're missing out on something because they hate something so much that they boycott. Or they're like, I'm never going to go there again. Well, okay, that's your problem.
You never came here to begin with.
So you hate, it's like, here's a modern parallel. You hate Disney so much that you won't take your child to see Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Like, that's just really ridiculous. Or Cinderella or whatever. Yeah. Like, you don't like the president, so you won't go see the White House. Ugh.
Yeah.
The rest of us, meanwhile, having happy times every day, saving battlefield, giving tours, putting up monuments, putting up statues, putting up interpretive markers, hiring new people, doing fun videos. It's a sunny day. There's a magnolia tree.
I have a battlefield.
The sun is out. It's going to rain
time.
tomorrow. There's going to be a battlefield tour. My granddaughter just turned 2 years old. Life is good.
Yeah.
It has its ups and downs, but if you think that your email saying you suck,
tell better history.
Go back to Minnesota. Here's a message.
You're a scalawag.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. You're stuck with me, boys. You couldn't get me out of here with a shoehorn. So, that being said, dun 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 dun.
Closing words, or don't be a hater.
Don't be a hater. The BOFT isn't going anywhere. Ripavilla, Carnton, and Carter House are thriving. And history is a wonderful thing, and we encourage everyone to come out and see it for yourselves. Professor?
See you in the comment section.
See you in the comment section.